Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Alhamdulillah, this is now episode 54 of the podcast The Forward with myself, Brother Mahdi Locke. And today we are looking at part 2 of Luqman's advice to his son from Surat Luqman. And we are looking at Ayaat 16 to 19 of Surat Luqman, which is the 31st chapter of the Qur'an. And this section, Imam Wahbah az-Zuhayli, because we're using his tafseer al-Wasit, because he has three, the longest of which is, I think, 16 or 17 volumes, the shortest of which is one, and this one is 3 volumes, 3 thick volumes. So this is called a group of fundamental or foundational commands and prohibitions, right, of advice that Luqman gives to his son. So he starts off by saying, this is Imam Wahbah az-Zuhayli, rahimahullah, he says that Luqman al-Hakim, Luqman the wise, in his advice to his son, he combines or gathers between the foundations of theology, the foundations of law, of the Sharia, and of manners. So he commands his son to appreciate and understand Allah's power, and then to establish the prayer, and he commands him, and then not to establish the prayer, but also to enjoin the good that Allah has commanded, and to forbid the evil that Allah has prohibited, to be patient with afflictions. He warns him against being arrogant, and that rather he should walk humbly and gently and modestly on the earth, that he should lower his voice, that he should speak to people gently and kindly. He should distance himself from heavy speech, heavy or harsh speech, and he should not raise his voice more than what is necessary. And these are the ayat, these noble ayats, summarize or contain all of these commands and prohibitions. So I will read the translation to you. This is ayat 16 through to 19. The translation is as follows. So Luqman says, "My son, even as something weighs as little as a mustard seed, and is inside a rock or anywhere else in the heavens or earth, Allah will bring it out. Allah is all-pervading, all-aware. My son, establish the prayer and command what is right and forbid what is wrong, and be steadfast in the face of all that happens to you. That is certainly the most resolute course to follow. Do not avert your face," meaning do not turn your face. "Do not avert your face from people out of haughtiness," i.e. arrogance, "and do not strut about arrogantly on the earth. Allah does not love anyone who is vain or boastful. Be moderate in your tread," i.e. the way you walk, "and lower your voice. The most hateful of voices, or the most hateful of sounds, is the donkey's bray, or the donkey's sound, the sound that the donkey makes." And these are the ayats. So these are ayat 16 through to 20. So Imam Wahbah az-Zuhayli in his tafseer, he continues, and he says, these are the remaining pieces of advice that Luqman the wise has for his son. In the first advice, he informs his son of Allah to appreciate, or the extent, because there's no limit obviously, of Allah's power. And he says, "My dear son, if a good deed or a bad deed, were to be equivalent to the weight of the smallest thing you can imagine, like a mustard seed, for example, and on top of that, it was in a really hidden place, like the inside of a boulder, or in a really high place, like the skies, or in a really low place, really deep place, like the inside of the earth, deep inside the earth. On the day of judgment, on the day of reckoning, Allah will bring it out, because Allah is all-pervading, all-aware. His knowledge reaches everything that is hidden. He is fully aware, fully informed of the innermost of matters. No matter how hidden something is, Allah knows about it. So, and these attributes of lutf and ilm, I mean, what's been translated as all-pervading, all-aware, these are two attributes that are attached to manifesting to manifesting the amazing nature of Allah's power. Allah knows absolutely everything. It's one of the things I remember reading in a theology book a long time ago. And you have to really bring this to mind. When we say that Allah is seeing, for example, right? We say Allah can see you. When you think of Allah seeing you, you might just, in your mind, because you're a human being, you might think, okay, you might just think of it as one direction. No, Allah is looking at you from every single direction. Allah is looking at you from every single direction. Allah can hear you from every single direction. Right? I remember one book that they put it as Allah hears the whispering in the crowd. He hears everything. I mean, or one teacher put it, I think I read it in a book as well, but I remember a teacher of mine once put it as Allah hears colors and he sees sounds. Nothing escapes his knowledge. So this is what Luqman, the wise, is telling his son. Now, the next thing that comes up, and then the tafseer Imam Wahbah az-Zuhayli says that what Luqman then basically says to his son is, "O my son, adhere to establishing the prayer, which is a worship that is purely for Allah, or liwajhillah, it's for Allah's countenance, for Allah's face," which again, this is an expression that refers to seeing Allah in the hereafter. So Luqman is saying to his son, carry it out perfectly with all its arkan and its shurut, and then command to the good. So the ma'ruf is that which the divine law or the divine legislation has affirmed, right? And then forbid the wrong, the munkar, or the evil. And that is everything that the divine legislation has forbidden or prohibited. And this is a really important point here. And this comes up in the theology book. Again, this is in Imam al-Bulti's book, Muhammad Surat al-Bulti's book, The Greatest Universal Sureties, about al-Qubh wal-Hasan, which you could translate basically as good and evil. I believe that was the term in English, theodicy, this problem of evil. And this is a question that's posed a lot in the Anglosphere and in Europe. They talk about, how is it that we can have a good Lord, right? We say we have a Lord, we have a God he's good and he's all powerful, yet evil things happen. All right, this is a question that people like to pose, right? People who are not Muslim like to pose this question, see if they can catch a Muslim out. Well, what they're doing is they're jumping past the definitions. They're jumping past the definition of what is good, what is evil. Our understanding, the understanding of Muslim orthodoxy, of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, is that nothing is inherently good or evil. Nothing. Evil and good are what Allah has decreed to be evil or good. If Allah has said this is evil, this is haram, that's what it is. If Allah has said this is good, this is command, you should do it, this is good. So if Allah says fornication is evil, it's evil. If Allah has said that prayer is good, then prayer is good. That's how we understand things. And that's what the Imam Wahbah has written here, right? That which is ma'ruf is that which Allah has, Allah in His legislation has defined as good, what He has commanded to and affirmed. And that which is wrong or evil is that which Allah in His legislation has prohibited and forbidden. And that's outside the problem. Why would that solves the problem, I should say. That sorts the issue out. We shouldn't be this idea of why does evil things happen? Well, who said it was evil? Where's your definition of good and evil coming from? And also it sort of assumes or presumes that there is some sort of universal standard of good and evil that, like, at some sort of lower structure, at some substructural level, all human beings naturally agree on on what's good and what's evil. And that's not necessarily true. Good and evil differ from culture to culture. So what do we stick to? What Allah has commanded and what Allah has forbidden. This is a very, very important point to keep in mind. Then he says, Imam Wahbah az-Zuhayli, in tafseer of these ayat, that what Luqman the son is saying to it, what Luqman the wise is saying to his son is, and be patient with afflictions and tribulations and harms that come your way. And that is from the most resolute affairs, right? I.e., it is something that Allah has commanded to. So what he's saying to him is that you have to be patient. You have to be patient because, or you have to be patient with the changing, with the changes that take place and the harms that will come to you. And there's a connection as well. There's a connection that this is what he says next, is he says that if you are going to be someone who's going to change the wrong in this world, you're going to speak up and you're going to try to correct that which is wrong in this world. Maybe you're trying to teach people. Maybe you're trying to advise people. Maybe you actually have to resort to physical means. That when this happens, such a person can be harmed. You can be harmed in the process of doing this, in the process of trying to correct that which is wrong, to command the good and forbid that which is wrong. Harm can come your way. It's not absolutely necessary, but it can happen. Imam Wahbah az-Zuhayli continues, and he says, these commands include the greatest acts of obedience and all the greatest virtues. So he continues, Luqman the wise, he says to his son, my son, do not turn your face away from people when they speak to you. And don't turn your face away out of arrogance and contempt. It's very, very important advice. This is basic manners and morals. And again, remember what we said in the last episode, what Imam Wahbah az-Zuhayli told us. Luqman al-Hakim, he's not a prophet. What he's saying, he's going to make this point at the end, what he's saying, the advice he's giving is not based on revelation. It's based simply on wisdom, on sound intellect, and on experience. So he's saying, don't turn your face away from people out of arrogance and contempt. Rather, be humble, be gentle, and be kind with people. Be, what's the other word here? I'm trying to think here. Yeah, gentle, kind, easygoing with people. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Right? Smile. Don't be frowning and miserable. And then he says, and don't go about in the earth mukhtal, and being conceited and strutting around arrogantly and obstinately. For this is a type of walking that Allah the Exalted hates. And Allah punishes every conceited person, or everyone who is conceited in the way they walk, impressed with himself, very pleased with himself, and showing arrogance and disdain towards others. This is not how you're supposed to be. And I would add to that, because when I was preparing this, I made a note here. I said, don't be cynical. This is one of the things that can easily happen to certain people in the world. Right? I talked to you last time about the victim mentality, but there's also this kind of a cynical attitude is connected to it, where you can just think, who cares? No one listens to me. I try to change things. I try to help people. So what, right? This sort of cynical attitude, and that's not how you should be, right? Some people fall into that cynicism, and they're just like, oh, so what? Who cares? What's so good about the day? What's the point of life? Blah 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 blah. And there's so much ingratitude in that attitude. It's just total ingratitude. You're not looking at the blessings that Allah is showing you, Allah is giving you every second. You're not aware of these things. And like the hadith, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's actually a hadith Qudsi, where Allah says, "Ana inda dhanni abdi bi." I am as my slave thinks of me. So, if you see your life as miserable, if you see your life as being deprived, and you don't have all the blessings that you want, well, then that's how your life is going to be, because that's how you see it. The way you see it is the way it's going to be. That's what you have to bear in mind. The way you see your life that's the way it's going to be. You have to change the way you see things. You have to show something better to the world. have a better view of the world and show something better to the world, and maybe the world will reflect something better back at you. He continues, Imam az-Zuhayli, and he says, walk in a way that is in the middle, right? Walk in a middle way, an average way. What he means by that is not in a slow way, as if you're weak and you're trying to be like a zahid, right? Like don't walk as if you're this, miserable, oppressed person. Woe is me, look at me, I'm so miserable, I'm so oppressed, I'm such a victim, which I talked about last time, this whole victim mentality, to walk around really slowly, right? Because this is a form of ostentation. Look at me, I'm so poor, look at me, I'm so miserable, look at me, I have so many problems, oh, my life is so hard. Don't walk around like that. But then don't walk excessively fast, as if you're a shaitan prancing around the place, jumping from here to there. Don't do that either. Rather, walk in a way that's in the middle. And the word that's used in the Qur'an, Allah says, وَلَا تَمْشِي فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا. So this word, what does it mean? Imam Wahbah explains, he means it is to walk in a way where you're not preoccupied with anything and there's no need, right? You're just walking slowly and strutting your stuff. And you're doing it simply to show off. It's a conceited, arrogant sort of strut. This is what's being described in Ayah 18. Don't walk like this. Then he comes up to the last piece of advice, which is the main thing, which is how you talk. And this is very, very important, and it really, really fits nicely with the first few ayat of Surat Al-Hujurat. If you read the 49th surah, the first few ayat of Surat Al-Hujurat, this goes together, because it's about raising your voice. So Imam Wahbah az-Zuhayli, he interprets this as, he says that what Luqman, the wise, is saying to his son is, don't raise your voice, raf'an shadidan, excessively or harshly, la fa'ida min, right? There's no benefit in that. There's no benefit in raising your voice. Why are you raising your voice? Rather, lower it. For indeed, having a harsh voice hurts and it damages the tools of hearing, right? It's going to damage your ears. You're talking loud all the time, it's going to damage your ears. And it indicates ghurur, right? Ghurur meaning this deceit and snobbery, right? It's a snobby way of talking with a raised voice. And it's this overweening pride, and it also shows a lack of concern for others, right? And I would add to that definitely, people who go around playing loud music, right? Which is very common. Sadly, it's common in Muslim countries as well. People drive around just playing loud music. Well, why? Okay, we can understand if you make the music loud enough for you to hear in your car. Why does the whole neighborhood need to hear your music? Why? Why is that person doing that? Why? Because they're arrogant. That person is arrogant. That person is inconsiderate. That person is selfish. That person simply does not care about other people. And again, it's not just music as well. Whatever you're listening to on your radio or your phone or whatever, or these kind of issues, even Qur'an, right? Don't disturb people with Qur'an. If people are sleeping, don't be playing Qur'an really loud on your radio or on your stereo, whatever it is. Have consideration for people. Mobile phones are the same thing. If you're going to talk on the phone in public, right? And because sometimes it can be normal when you're talking on a phone to raise your voice to make sure the person at the other end of the line can hear you. That's understandable, but you have to consider where you are. If you're in a restaurant, if you're in a cafe, if you're in a store, if you're in a library especially, that if you're talking really loud, that you're going to disturb people around you. Have some consideration for those around you. You're not the only person in the world. Have some concern. Imam Wahbah az-Zuhayli continues, and he says, having an average voice, keeping your voice in the middle, is awqar lil-mutakallim. This is more dignified for the speaker, and it makes it easier for one's speech to be fully grasped and understood. All right, so when you speak in a normal, moderate tone, and moderate decibel level, people can understand what you're saying. Example would be now. If I was saying the exact same words, but I was shouting my head off, you wouldn't enjoy it, and you probably wouldn't understand what I was saying if I was speaking like at a really, really high voice and just shouting to the microphone like I was running an auction or something. No, but if I speak in a nice, calm, measured tone, then it's easier for the listener to grasp what I'm saying. Then he continues, and this is what, with the tafseer, he says that raising one's voice more than necessary, it resembles the sound or the voice of a donkey. Right? You sound like a donkey. When you raise your voice more than necessary, you sound like a donkey. And the ugliest of voices or of sounds is the voice of the donkey. And it's something that Allah does not like. Allah detests. Because the first of it, Allah detests this. Why? Because when a donkey brays, B-R-A-Y, the sound the donkey makes, the first of it is this sort of exhaling, moaning sound, and then the end of it is this inhaling sound. It is ankar al-aswat, right? Is the translation I have here is like the most hateful of voices, but he explains it here, Imam Wahbah az-Zuhayli. He said it is akbah, right? Which means it is ugly. It's an ugly, disgusting sound, but also it's awhash, which means it is disgusting, it's repulsive, it's uncivilized, it's barbarous. It's a barbaric sound. A donkey's bray. And that's why you shouldn't do it. You don't want to sound like a barbarian. Don't speak louder than necessary. So all of this, Imam Wahbah az-Zuhayli continues, he says, all of this shows the blameworthiness of raising your voice when there's no need, right? If you're not giving a public address, you're not giving a speech to a large crowd of people, you're not crying out for help, you're not looking for someone, why are you raising your voice? It's not civilized, it's not respectable, it's not dignified. In fact, it's the opposite. It's repulsive, it's disgusting, it's uncivilized. And some people have it, Allah guide them and help them. Some people, they have it as a habit, and there can be reasons why. Again, you have to be patient with people, especially people who are deaf, right? Or hard of hearing. I shouldn't say deaf. People who are hard of hearing. People who are hard of hearing, obviously, when they hear other people speak, it sounds like low decibel, right? So you could be speaking normally to someone. Sometimes it might be someone older than you. You're speaking normally, your normal tone, but they can't hear you, and they think you're speaking quietly. So they raise their voice when they're talking to you, right? So when they speak, so to you, when they're speaking to you, you think it's a high voice, it's a really loud voice. To them, because they're hard of hearing, they sound normal. So for people like that, you need to be patient with them. That they don't understand. To them, they sound normal because they have hearing problems. Other people, it can be just some of the environment they were raised in, the people they were around as children. Sometimes people are raised in a household where the parents are both loud, right? Which is it's a lamentable situation. But like I said in my virtual book launch, when I sat down, it was 3 hours. What was done to you as a child, according to Susan Ford, the psychologist, what was done to you as a child is not your fault, but it is your responsibility what you do about it as an adult. And you have to, if you understand, once you understand, you listen to this podcast, and we're reading the ayat of the Qur'an, we're reading Allah's words, we're reading the tafseer, and you're learning now that speaking with a loud voice, it's not what you're supposed to do. It's not respectable. It's not dignified. You really have to learn not to do it. It's not a good thing to do, because it resembles the voice of a donkey, and he says here, تشبيه بصوت الحمار يقتضي غاية الذم, right? If your voice resembles the voice of a donkey, then it necessitates the utmost blame. You deserve blame if that's the way you talk. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam affirmed this in a hadith rawahu al-Jama'a and Abu Hurairah. So this is a hadith. It's been related from the Jama'a on the authority of Abu Hurairah. I would he'd like to give some credit where credit is due. I was looking at this term of Jama'a. When I saw the term Jama'a, also it was referring to certain hadith narrators. My first instinct was to go to Bulugh al-Maram, by Imam bin Hajar al-Asqalani, but he doesn't mention it. So I asked Al-Hajj Abu Ja'far al-Hanbali where I could look this up and what it meant, and he told me and he gave me the source, and alhamdulillah, it's in the book Al-Muntaqa في الأحكام الشرعية من كلام خير البرية by Imam Majduddin ibn Taymiyyah, not Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah, not Imam Taqiyuddin, but Imam Majduddin ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, was the grandfather of Imam Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah. And the Jama'ah, this he says in the Muqaddimah, Ar-Rawah al-Jama'ah, this refers to Imam Ahmad to begin with, then Imam Bukhari and Muslim, and then the four authors of the Sunan collection, so Ibn Majah and Abu Dawud, Tirmidhi, and Nasa'i, right? So it's those seven. That is the Jama'ah. So they all narrate this hadith on the authority of Abu Hurairah. And the translation is, if you hear the rooster crowing, then ask Allah from His grace. Fasalullah min fadlihi. And if you hear the braying of the donkey, then seek refuge in Allah from shaitan, for indeed he has just seen a shaitan. And this hadith, I looked it up, I have it here with me. Imam an-Nawawi, in his Sharh of Sahih Muslim, on this actual hadith, he quotes Qadi Iyad, because Qadi Iyad also has a shot of Sahih Muslim, the great Maliki scholar, who's buried in Marrakesh. Imam Nawawi quotes him almost in every page in Sahih Muslim. In Imam, to make this clear, let me say this again. Imam Nawawi, in his own commentary of Sahih Muslim, he quotes the commentary of Qadi Iyad almost on every page. And he says, and basically he just says, Qala al-Qadi, the Qadi has said, the Qadi has said. And so I was referring to Qadi Iyad. And Qadi Iyad said, why do you ask Allah from His fadl when you hear the rooster crowing? Because it says when the rooster crowing is because it's just seen an angel. He says here, yeah, because that's the full wording. So that wording is actually not mentioned in what Imam Wahbah az-Zuhayli said. But in here, in the narration of Imam Muslim, إذا سمعتم صياح الديكة, if you hear the crowing of the rooster, then ask Allah from His fadl. فإنها رأت ملكا, for indeed it has just seen an angel. So Imam an-Nawawi, this is in Imam Muslim's wording. So Imam an-Nawawi quotes Qadi Iyad, who says, why do you do that? Because you're hoping, because the rooster's crowing indicates angels being present. So what you do is you make dua and you hope that the angels will say Ameen with you for the dua, and they will seek forgiveness for you, and they will be witnesses to your sincerity and your humility before Allah. So this is an amazing point. So, if you hear a rooster crowing, then you know what to do now. Alhamdulillah. Imam Wahbah az-Zuhayli, he continues, and he says, the wisdom in these pieces of advice is obvious. For when Luqman forbade his son from having blameworthy manners and repulsive morals and characteristics and character, basically, he then gave him, or he also gave him, or he outlined for him moral or noble manners that he should know and that he should implement, such as being middlemost in the way he walks, i.e., not going beyond the normal bounds, i.e., not walking excessively fast, and at the same time, not showing off and walking slowly in a very ostentatious manner, but to walk in the middle, and not to walk in a conceited, puffed up manner. And then he says he should not raise his voice more than that which is necessary, because lowering one's voice is more dignified for the speaker and is better for the soul of the listener. It actually says absatu li nafs sami wa fahmihi. Right? It's better for the one listening, it's better for his understanding, and it's just easier on his soul. Or in our nafs, that's what I would translate it. Nafs, you could translate it as ego, but I would just say the soul. Like it can trouble your soul when someone's right next to you but are talking so loudly. It can be such an unpleasant experience that it troubles you on the inside. Then Imam Wahbah az-Zuhayli, rahimahullah, he makes one final point. about this. It's quite beautiful, this final point he makes. And he says that the call of the prophets, when the prophets call to faith in Allah and in His power, and to worshiping Allah and His tawheed, and they call to establishing the prayer and commanding that which is virtuous and combating that which is blameworthy and vile, and being modest and humble and middlemost in the way one walks, all of this harmonizes and goes together with what is required by wisdom. When a wise person reflects and thinks and uses their sound intellect and uses their experience, they arrive at the same conclusion. But that's what he's saying. Right? Now, obviously revelation is going to be more detailed and have a lot more information. But what Luqman is as an example, Luqman al-Hakim, he's an example of someone who, through sound intellect and through wisdom and through experience and reflection, can arrive at the same foundational principles that a prophet gets through revelation, in terms of what they should believe, don't commit shirk, for example, the fact that they should pray, right, or that Allah should be worshipped in a general sense, and that one should have certain good morals. A wise person can arrive at this without revelation. This is the final point he makes. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. Before I go, so I'll just mention that if you like these videos, if you like these podcasts and are benefiting from them and you find them valuable, please like, share, and subscribe. And you can also, if you wish to support this channel, please consider getting a copy of The Big Step, How to Survive Islam in the Anglosphere. I'll put the links below. It's on Amazon now. The book is also on Lulu. That's where it was originally printed and published. There's a 10% discount there, so I'll include that below. And please keep us in your du'as. And inshallah, I'll have another video up in a week or so. I'm still thinking what to do, whether I should do another podcast or maybe if I should do a translation. Inshallah, some ideas will come to me in the coming week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.